Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are across the globe. It's a Sunday, chilly morning from here in Nairobi, and I'm so happy, honored to join everyone from wherever you're joining us. Welcome. And it will be a very interesting moment for me to walk this discussion, interfaith dialogue in promoting youth, peace, and security. It's a very interesting topic, and I hope it's going to be an engaging one, and I am looking forward to hear from you all. Thank you so much once again for joining, and my name is Balqesa Abdi. I am based in Nairobi. I have worked in youth space for over a decade, and it has been a passion, and what drives me every time is a passion. And the topic interfaith dialogue is a very interesting one that I have been engaged in, working with people from different faiths. And sometimes, of course, there's the question of sensitivity, but I have never decided to take it from a sensitive perspective. So welcome again, and thank you for joining. I hope I am audible enough. I know I have a very audible voice, so I hope I'm audible enough, and I really hope and pray that technology will not disappoint us. So having said that, having introduced myself, I would like to introduce the topic interfaith dialogue. What is interfaith dialogue? I would like to start with that. And interfaith dialogue, of course, refers to cooperative or constructive or a positive interaction between, it can be two people, it can be a group of people from different religious traditions and faiths at an individual level, a group level, or an institutional level. So coming together and having a constructive, positive discussion about faith. People, of course, in this globe subscribe to different faiths. So having a discussion on different faiths is what interfaith dialogue means. And, you know, such dialogues can take a wide variety of forms, ranging from, you know, small groups, as I said, two people. Sometimes we have institutions, you know, for joint appeals by high-level religious leaders to attempt to develop mutual understanding and the recognition of shared values. People have different values, and the underlying principle usually is unity in diversity. You know, people have different interests, and such efforts can be at the grassroots level to promote reconciliation or unity, coexistence. So increased awareness of religious plurality, because we live in a very, you know, in our global world, we are global citizens compared to way back many years ago. The world is open, you know, and religion is being acknowledged in many parts. People have different faiths, different religions, different beliefs. And what we need to do is to appreciate and accept everyone for who they are, despite difference in faiths or religion or, you know, cultural beliefs. So the potential role of religion in conflict and the growing place of religion in public life presents urgent challenges. You know, that's why we need to discuss such topic that requires greater understanding and cooperation among people of diverse faiths to increase acceptance of others and to better understand their identity. If we do not understand each other, if we do not you know, appreciate each other, and if we do not acknowledge each other, then how do we live in a global world? How do we live as neighbors? How do we live as communities? That's why interfaith dialogue is very important. So if I go into the importance of interfaith dialogue in promoting peace and security in Africa, as I said earlier, I have worked with young people. I have been in the youth space for over 10 years. And many a times you see youth being placed at a very central, position of victims and perpetrators when it comes to, insecurity, peace-related issues. And of course, with the surge of terrorism in the global world, then it even becomes more difficult and tough for young people, and mainly in Africa, because the surge in terrorism and violent extremism in the past over 15 years now tends to be linked to the role of young men and women. Because if there's any insecurity, especially in this case related to terrorism, then who are the people we point fingers at? Those are people like you and I. Those are people, young men and women. Those are people who are not trusted in some cases because they are related or connected with violence. And in reality, the role of young people in the relation to peace and security is poorly understood and much more complex than these kind of stereotypes suggest. And therefore, interfaith dialogue is an integral part of peace building and gives an opportunity for mutual understanding. If I come from faith A and someone else comes from faith B, and we have constructive dialogue, we have positive debate, then we come to an understanding that we are both human, and no matter what, or despite our difference in faith, we should still respect each other and live because we belong to one community. So interfaith dialogue also encourages unity and coexistence between people from different faiths. There's no way, you have to have your own community of the same faith. How will that even look like? There's no diversity. And there's no room where you can just live alone in this world. You have to accept and live with people from different faiths. And faith is a tool that can be positively used to promote peace and security. It also gives clear understanding of the different perspective of people subscribing to different faith. When we sit and talk, when we debate, when we dialogue, when we discuss, then we tend to understand. For example, I will refer to the Christian scriptures and the Muslim, the Quran. There's a verse that says, you should love your neighbor like you love yourself. And that applies both in the Christian faith and, in the Muslim faith. And what does that mean then? That means different religion promote, coexistence, and different religion promotes love. Different religion promotes, unity and coexistence among communities. So there's no, honestly, I believe, I have not studied all the religions or faith in this world, but I believe, every person who has a value, who has, who subscribes to a certain faith, a certain norm, a certain value, a certain, be it even a personal principle, values the importance of humanity. And that is why, humanity is the umbrella that brings everyone together. Humanity is the main thing. There's no one who will just wake up and want to harm humanity. And that is why interfaith dialogue always brings humanity at the center stage of every aspect of life. And that's why it's very important, especially for young people, to have such discussions within the continent. It encourages working together as a community towards one goal and makes even peace efforts easier. Because when you are looking for peace, people go back to scriptures, people refer to Bible verses, people refer to Quranic verses, people refer to, different faith teachings. And what does that mean? Then that means the moral value is also very important in our daily lives, because as much as we tend to work towards coexistence, as much as we have different kind of, violent causing issues in nature, then we still have values that can guide us towards promoting peace and humanity in this global world. So it also promotes humanity, as I said, and protects violation of human rights. You know, when you have such kind of discussions, you bring on board religious leaders from different faiths, different faiths, and every leader will tell you the importance of humanity. You know, there's an Islamic verse that says killing one person is like killing the whole of humanity. And when we go back to what's happening in the world now, terrorism, the linkage of this terrorism to faith, you know, the stigma it causes and the way it makes peace and security even a more complex topic to discuss, a more complex topic to get into, a more complex topic to, you know, action on, because so many young people out there are sometimes left behind, and that feeling of, you know, not being included also makes it tough for us to have the dialogue of peace and security. And what are, you know, the things that young people, or the engagement of young people in interfaith dialogue to promote peace and security? How can young people in Africa and diaspora, wherever they are across the globe, make use of interfaith dialogue to promote peace and security in their respective countries? Of course, we have, you know, the UN Security Council resolution of, 2250 of 2015. And the most interesting thing is lately, like few days ago or weeks ago, the UN has reaffirmed its commitment to strengthen young people participation in conflict prevention and peace building with the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 2535. What does that mean? Then there are more opportunities, there are more frameworks, there are more policies, there are more tools for young people to use in promoting peace and security. So marrying UN 2250 and 1325 of women, peace and security is a very interesting way of walking this journey of peace and security, because sometimes there's that feeling of leaving young women behind. And you can imagine the power of youth peace and security and women peace and security. Youth peace and security and women peace and security. Those are two powerful things that can be married to ensure that, you know, women take a very big role at the center stage of ensuring that peace is promoted, not only at the global level, but at the grassroots level. And how can we achieve this? By making sure that they are on the table, they are part of the discussions, they are part of policy formulation team, they are part of, you know, decision makers. Because if we leave one part of the community or one part of the population behind, then that means we are leaving a very important number behind, and that will make our effort even more frustrated, because we will not achieve, we will not action as we would have actioned when we have everyone on board. It also fosters coexistence and working towards sustainable peace through community sensitization. Young people play a very important role. And that is why I said when I was beginning this conversation, they are at the center, they are the main pole, they are the main pillar, because when it comes to, you know, violence, insecurity, be it inter-ethnic related, be it land related, be it, you know, conflict related, every time young people are either used as perpetrators to cause violence or victims, because having, you know, been in the both sides of the coin can be really frustrating for young people. And how can then this be used positively to maximize on the opportunities available for young people to promote peace and security? They have a very, you know, very strong advocating role in the community. They have, you know, a strong role in ensuring that they sensitize the community. And interfaith dialogue is a plus in this, because the religious leaders are part of this journey. The government is important in ensuring this journey is also smooth, and every stakeholder within the community, within the nation, within a region, within a continent, within the globe is very important. And that makes a strong team. That makes the work of youth, peace, and security easier, because when these young people have people who are supporting to their right and to their left, in front of them and behind them, then it gives them the confidence to drive the whole agenda of peace and security. And that is why I said interfaith dialogue makes it easier, because religious leaders are very, very important in this journey of creating peace. And when we have people from different faiths, the entire community is represented. And that is when we can, confidently say no one is left behind. They can also take part in creating a platform to debate constructively in order to understand the importance of peace and security in different faiths. And how can they do this? Through universities, in high schools, through their community groups, through their circles. Young people are very creative, innovative, and they have technology to use. They can invent, and they have so many opportunities to ensure that they take the lead in ensuring there is peace and security in their respective regions. Also, they have a very strong role in localizing the UN Security Council Resolution 2250 of youth, peace, and security. And as I said earlier, marrying that with the 1325 of women, peace, and security ensures young women take part in peace and security. And that then gives us an opportunity that everyone is on board. Now moving forward, what are the challenges of interfaith dialogue in promoting youth, peace, and security? As I said earlier, I have a personal, I have personal stories to share in this, because one, it's quite, I said, many people tend to believe youth, peace, and security, especially bringing the idea of interfaith dialogue or bringing people of different faith together, is sometimes considered as sensitive. Why sensitive? Because faith is involved. Why sensitive? Because sometimes we shy away from talking about what needs to be discussed at the community level. Why sensitive? Because there is a stigma in this whole issue of terrorism. Why sensitive? Because if 10 young men and women sit somewhere and have a discussion on interfaith or terrorism or how to, promote peace in the community, is doubted, because sometimes, especially in the African continent, coming back to where I have experience in East Africa, young people are not sometimes, unfortunately, supported, given all the support that they need in driving this agenda, in taking the driver's seat. And many a times we find them on the menu. Youth are not on the table when discussions are made, when decisions are made, when policies are formulated, and rather on the menu. And on the menu, you understand when I say youth are on the menu rather than being on the table, because they are being discussed. And when someone is being discussed and they are not part of that table, then what happens? Young people are left behind. Especially in this case, young women, sometimes people might say, these young men will bring some problems, so let's have 2 of them or 3 of them to represent them. And the rest of the table, out of 10, only 3 are under 35. What does that mean? Then a wrong age group or a wrong people who can never fit in their shoes are making decisions for them. That definitely frustrates the whole idea of youth, peace, and security. And of course, now we have seen amazing young people, coming forward and ensuring that they are part of the table, they are part of the discussion, they are the drivers of change, despite the challenges, very resilient and working really hard across the continent. And that's a very positive thing, and makes, the agenda easier for us to drive, and for us to make sure that localization is also taking place. Because again, discussions in boardrooms where people are not involved at the grassroots level makes things hard and causes frustration, because you can imagine, there's the UN General Assembly or a national meeting, and then people who are really on the ground, who are struggling with conflict regarding land issues, conflict regarding religious issues, conflict associated with terror groups, young violent gangs coming up, all these are the things that needs to be discussed. And sometimes when we talk about young people, we do not really focus on young people. And you can imagine having from 27 people from 27 years of age up to 35, and then young people are not, part of the discussion. And sometimes we consider people below, in some African context, we consider people below the age of 27 or 25 rather, as really young, as if they're children, and they are missing out of the discussion. They are busy, keeping themselves busy, and busy joining even the terror groups. We are not giving them the opportunity to come on board. There's no inclusion. These are the challenges that makes it difficult. The other thing is we need to define what is, what do we understand by the term, young people? What are the age brackets? Like, where do we define, where do we draw the line? Is an 18-year-old young person in Africa, in many countries, a 17-year-old, 16-year-old? Of course, I will consider them as adult, but it depends on the national definition of child and adult. So 18-year-old maybe is in school, still in high school, and who would invite an 18-year-old and sit with them on the table and have a discussion about youth, peace, and security? Of course, we still consider them. And sometimes for you to qualify to be a young person, honestly, you have to be, at your final year of university, that's around 21, 22, 23. And then, you're considered, you're still too young. You have to explore, first of all, and learn about these things. And then the challenging bit and the most interesting thing that people are trying to understand now is the people who can easily be influenced to, join about terrorism, for example, join such gangs or terror groups. Young people who are at the age of below 23, because they are soft spot, they are the soft target for this kind of discussions. So leaving people who we consider to still be young because of our maybe norms and African culture, and having that whole idea of this person did not go to university yet, or even people who did not go to school. Anyone in the community is important, whether they went to school or not. That's the thing that we need to consider from the beginning. If we start, dividing people or trying to segregate or trying to say women are not supposed to be part of the table, women are not, or young people, we consider them as children, yet they are over 20, then that means we are leaving a lot of people behind. There's also lack of adequate participation of, the stakeholders. Sometimes we tend to have a certain group of people more. Sometimes we have a certain faith more than the other people. So, for example, if we are having interfaith dialogue and we only have, of course, we have very, we have good representation of young people, we have good representation of the government stakeholders, we have good representation of the community, but then we have less, representation of the people, religious leaders. For example, we have a certain religion more than the other religion, then that will cause more problem, more harm than good, because later on there will be a discussion of how many people were present in that meeting, in that dialogue, and what were the deliberations made, what were the agreements, and how are we going to action, because it's not just about the dialogue. The most important part is action after the dialogue, having everyone has an action point. What everyone has a responsibility to play in the community. So what is your responsibility? And having equal representation, be it from the faith, be it government, be it the young people themselves, be it the community, is very vital. And the moment we have less representation from a certain, segment, then we are losing this discussion. In many countries, unfortunately, the government is not at the center in supporting such initiatives. Then this tends to leave religious leaders with such a big burden, because sometimes some governments, I'm not saying every government, but in every step, in every agenda, in every journey, in every policy that we need to implement, the government of a respective nation is very important. Why? Because, there is no way you and I can sit somewhere, formulate a policy and pass a bill and implement. Of course, there are structures and we have to respect those structures. And without their presence, without their support, then the effort is always frustrated. And there's also, as I said earlier, poor representation of women. Yeah, poor representation of women, and women have proved, I am not saying this because I am a woman, research has proved it, that women, but I am confidently saying this because I know research has proved that women are very important part of the community in ensuring that peace building efforts are achieved, in ensuring that youth, peace and security is promoted. And that is why, despite having YPS, Agenda 2250, we still have Agenda 1350. And this is where Agenda 1350 comes in, having intergenerational dialogues. As much as this is youth, peace and security, does not lock out other people, we need to have intergenerational dialogue. We need to bring people of different faith, different age group, different expertise together. Because when we are talking about land conflict, for example, there is no way, someone who does not have a background on land is not in the dialogue, and we are going to achieve, an understandable working solution. That means then we are leaving people behind, and it's unfortunate that we are going to regret later when we are actioning. How did we, where did we lose it? We lost it the moment we did not have inclusive discussion in an inclusive room, under a tree. Discussions in boardroom enough are not, adequate enough. We need to have discussions under a tree. We need to have discussions anywhere and everywhere, because every single person in the community has a role to play. So there's also division and stigma in many cases. And again, I will refer to terrorism. In many cases, we have stigma. And why do we have stigma? Why are some people stigmatized? Or why do we have people feeling that there is stigma? Because of what the media portrays, Sometimes, you see, for example, terrorism. Terrorism sometimes is associated or linked to a certain religion. And what does that mean? That then means there is accumulative hate. You can imagine someone pointing finger at you every other minute, media saying Muslim terror group or Muslim related gangs or Muslim related religion, is at stake here, and a certain group are receiving, all fingers pointing at them, and the media is not weighing what it's portraying, and the real, scenario might be different from what the media is portraying. So this, of course, causes division. People from faith A who are maybe thinking that there is stigma or the media is biased would feel like, this faith B does not like my faith. Why? Because they're pointing fingers at me, or they're telling the media. People can interpret things. And that's why people feel interfaith dialogue is sensitive. But if you look at the positive aspect, interfaith dialogue does not necessarily, relate with faith alone, because it goes way beyond. Interfaith dialogue can sort land-related conflict. Interfaith dialogue can sort inter-ethnic clashes, because sometimes people from they subscribe to same faith, but different tribes or different ethnic groups can have challenges, problems. For example, where I come from, where I have worked mostly in, people, have pastoralists or nomads. They move from point A to point B. And what does that mean? Then there is a resource that is supposed to be shared as a community. And a certain community maybe lives near the river, for example, and people want to take their livestock, and their livestock need water, so they need pasture. So people from community A will feel like this is the river, it's close to us, so it's ours. And you can imagine the conflict that can come out of that. It can be, it can start just as simple as that, and it will cost many lives, many lives. And that will definitely instigate more conflict. And it can even go to national, and for a certain country fighting another country. So when we discuss or talk about interfaith dialogue, I think it's not fair to zero into just faith. It's okay to look beyond that and look at the opportunities that interfaith dialogue possesses or offers, because it has the power to also tackle other issues, other conflict related to, other drivers. So there's also lack of clear frameworks and policies. Yeah, as much as we have, all these UN Security Council agendas, we have national policies, we have their specific policies or strategies or, guidelines that are related to the importance of interfaith dialogue in promoting youth peace and security in your respective countries. Ask yourself that question. If yes, then who are the drivers? Are they young people? If yes, then is it inclusive? If yes, then is it supported? Or we leave it with an institution? So there's that gap. That is, I feel, a very big gap. Or sometimes the challenge is interfaith is not like really 100% supported. And we tend to associate it with religious leaders. Someone will just say, I'm not a religious person, so I will let the religious people sort this. So if there's any issue that is happening on the ground, there are no champions of interfaith dialogue, or they are not people who understand humanity or who want to sort an issue before it's, raises to another level, then are we achieving? Are we taking our role? Are we being part of this community? Are we leaving things to people who are not in a very good position to sort them out? The other thing is, so dialogue is never enough, yeah? People have sat, people have brought, passed bills, people have passed resolutions, countries have signed different amazing resolutions on paper. Discussions have been done, very interesting, very nice, very amazing. But the question is, what are the actions and how can we take action? From dialogue to action, the practical things that young people can do to promote peace and security in their respective countries. As I said earlier, every young person has a role to play. I have a role to play in different parts, under different capacities in my country, in my community, in my region. And of course, that also gives something into the global arena as well. So something that you do for your country does not mean then this belongs to your country. You are a global person and you have a role to play. How can we then go from word to action? And sometimes it's easier said than done, yeah? Many things can be said, many people can sit and talk, but the most difficult part, even if we have all the policies passed, the government is supporting 100%, the community is supporting 100%. There is no issue at all as far as, you know, challenges between faith are concerned. You know, the road is very smooth for us to promote sustainable peace, and the world can be a better place. But then without action, everything will just remain in paper, and many more people will come and read and go, because they will just know about the dialogue, and everyone will know, of course, it's just a dialogue. No action has been done before us, so who are we to take a step in doing actions? So young people can ensure that they are part of the discussion, because they discussing this people have done, for example, yeah. So having them on board from stakeholder or none to know their position in the community, and young people should take their role in the community, because it's them to stand up for what they think is right. It's them to stand up and ensure that they are seen, they are visible, they are heard, they are listened to. That is how they can discuss this kind of discussion. So leaving them out of the discussion is a challenge, and for us to action, they need to be part of the table and not part of the menu, as I said earlier. And also ensuring there's equal participation of young men and women in driving the agenda. So if we say young people and we consider, you know, young men, and sometimes in Africa, we all understand young can be, you know, defined. A 50-year-old person can tell you, I am young. And of course we appreciate, and a young person definitely appreciates a 50-year-old decision or plan or strategies, but then making sure that every age group is part of this discussion. And if it's an agenda for young people, then please let us go to the back seat. You know, we have so many seats in the bus. It's important for us to go and take the back seat and let them drive us and feel that we are in safe hand, because sometimes we tend to feel this person is too young to drive me, not out of hate, but out of love. Of course, these people we are talking about might be our parents, you know, our relatives. And sometimes they're being a bit overprotective. So let's tell them, you know what? I have learned how to drive, let me drive you. And by driving this agenda, of course, you need to leave the driver's seat for a young person. The other things regarding action, practical things that young people can do. And now I will bring in personal story. Having said that, I took part in interfaith dialogues in many parts, and the most recent example that I will give is Garissa University. I know majority of you know about the Garissa University. It's a university in Garissa County in Kenya. The university has lost 147 students in 2015 to terrorism, and the university was closed. Yeah, after the incident, the terror incident, the university was closed, and that was the only university in the entire region of northern Kenya. Over 6 million, population of over 6 million. Of course, you can imagine young people being majority of the population. You can imagine the number of young people whose hope for education was literally shattered due to the closure of the university because of the incident that happened. And so I was part of the team that really struggled and fought for the reopening of the university, because as much as I did not live in that part of the region, I was born and brought up in that part of the region. And I totally understand what it means not to have education in your life, growing up without education, because it's a very powerful tool. It's a tool that has, you know, it's a tool that anyone can use, and it's something that's actually connecting us. You can imagine, if I did not go to school, you did not go to school, how will we communicate at the moment? Don't even go far, you know. You can imagine I speak in my mother tongue. How will you listen to me? How will you engage in this discussion? How will you be in a position to understand the agenda we're trying to drive? So it was a very frustrating moment, and thankfully, we managed, the university was reopened, but again, there was no trust, because unfortunately, majority of the people, of the young, you know, innocent lives lost in that university were not from the Muslim faith. And the Garissa is mainly, you know, Garissa is mainly Muslim region, Muslim community. So of course we have the Christian community, but they were somehow fewer compared to the Muslim community. So when the university reopened, nobody, especially, you know, from the non-Muslim community, wanted to be admitted to that university, because they felt that anything that happened during the Garissa massacre can happen to them. And, you know, understandably so, because if the media shows you that a big number of non-Muslim community was murdered or killed in a cold blood on an early, I remember it was on a Saturday morning, and those people did not do anything wrong. Those people just went to study in, you know, anyone can study in wherever part you want to in this world. So they are Kenyans, they could study anywhere. And unfortunately, the Al-Shabaab terror group came and, you know, killed 147. So when the university reopened, it was very tough, again, for us to have a discussion on how can these people again feel safe in the university. There were a number of discussions, and one thing that really supported is, of course, as much as I felt it was very tough, is, you know, first of all, dialogue, you know, healing dialogue. First of all, you have to speak your heart, speak your mind, speak about everything that happened. We still have victims. You can imagine remembering what happened. You know, everyone was asleep, and, you know, these people just came in and started killing people. So having that in mind, and, you know, someone asking you to come back to the same spot where your friend, your desk mate, or your bed mate, or your dormitory mate, or your roommate, or your hostel mate, whatever, was killed, was a really tough moment for these people. And fortunately, what worked well, of course, it was not a very easy journey, it was taking a lot of time, is the dialogue. So we started initiating an interfaith dialogue, because people had to speak first. And where the most important part is the first phase, where people just have to speak and speak their heart. Speaking their heart meaning, sometimes they can go a bit emotional, they can go negative, they can point fingers. And as an interfaith dialogue facilitator, or an interfaith dialogue, you know, someone who creates the platform for people to dialogue, you have to listen to all, you know, these kind of things. And people cry, people point fingers, people say these people do not like these people, you know. It was very tough, but through that journey, and that's why that university is very special to me, because I had walked a very tough journey, and I can look back and say, wow, the university has achieved such a great milestone now. Through that dialogue and discussion and journey, we created Champions of Interfaith Dialogue, and ours was now to hand over. But before we do that, from, I think, very small number from the same community enrollment in the university, to now over 700 students in the university from different community, from every part of the country. The university is back, you know, back to normal. Of course, sometimes there's fear, there's rumors that, you know, ABCD is gonna happen and stuff. But the amazing thing and the beauty of interfaith dialogue is the university is now a community. There is nothing about faith A and faith B. The students decided to stand together. The student decided to own the university. The student decided to say no to a repeat of what has happened before. The student decided to wipe each other's tear, and the student decided to write a story and learn from it, and of course extend what they have learned to the community. The importance of interfaith dialogue, the importance of, you know, using these kind of dialogues and platforms to fight stigma, because stigma and perception are among the things that has really caused tension, because if there's no trust, then there's no coexistence, there's no you know, unity, there's no peace, because everyone is living in fear. Everyone feels like there will be an attack or conflict or an issue in the next minute. And then when these people come together, the power, honestly speaking, even the religious leaders said they have never seen such a strong voice from the university that has now decided to go into, you know, the community level, because the university had this bad history, of course, that we can't ignore. The commemoration takes place every 2nd April every year. But the beauty is the strong bond, the strong community that they built, learning from their past experience through interfaith dialogue is commendable. And now they have interfaith dialogue champions. They have interfaith dialogue champions who are working hard, not only in the universities, but also outside the universities. They sit and discuss, you know, the teachings of the Quran, the teachings of the Bible, and everyone understands that humanity is way, you know, more than what two people could disagree on. Humanity is something that everyone has a role to play in upholding. You know, humanity is at the center stage of this. And the important thing here is embracing unity in diversity, because without diversity, then there's no community. And without diversity, then there's no system. And they have, of course, understood, that education is an important tool that no one wants to lose. You know, you can imagine a community without education, a community without going to school, a community where everyone is just there and no one has the opportunity to access to education, despite having, you know, people from different faith, different, you know, everything. Education is a tool that can make people understand each other, you know, a tool that can fight poverty, a tool that can promote peace, a tool that can make people understand each other. So now the university has gone way, way, way beyond what people thought or expected, because at some point people were losing hope and thinking that after the closure, that is it. There's no education in this region, because, and if that was the approach that we would have used, or the government have used, or the community have decided on, then we would have lost to terrorism, meaning frustration to peace processes. So I am so happy that that achievement was made. And it's very interesting because, you know, the thought of having a whole university close is literally given into terror. And you can imagine how that would have expanded, and how frustrating it would have been for all of us, you know, not just in Garissa, but, or even in Kenya, but in the entire region, because terrorism is something that is common to many countries, and playing a role, a strong role that like this makes us win, and not letting, you know, this militia groups win. So how can interfaith dialogue then be used to champion other challenges that young people face in the continent? So if I go to the last part now is, of course, interfaith dialogue can be a great tool in fighting ethnic. I said this earlier, and I will repeat, because sometimes we tend to just relate interfaith with just faith. So it's a tool that is easy and in fighting ethnic, land, and faith-related conflict. It can be a great tool to promote peace and security, because if we have that strong tool, then you can imagine the power of interfaith dialogue. It's also used to promote nation stability through, we have one nation, one tribe campaigns. I have seen this in Juba, in South Sudan, and I have seen this in other parts of Eastern Africa. So one nation, one tribe, because sometimes when interethnic conflict is recurring, there's the feel of, tough time in managing this kind of conflicts. So if everyone is patriotic about their country, and of course, faith is just, not the primary thing for them to define themselves as citizens of a country, then it makes even the government efforts easier in promoting peaceful coexistence. So interfaith dialogue can be used in that way to promote peace and security. Also, it also gives, acceptance, acknowledgement, because when you acknowledge people from different faiths and they have one agenda that they're working towards, then it makes coexistence easier, and it promotes humanity in different perspectives and different ways. So that is it from my end. Feel free to ask questions or comments or additions, because as I said earlier, I would love this to be more engaging and two-way. Of course, I believe I can also learn from you guys, and I am happy to walk these discussions with you further, even at a personal level. If you're from Kenya, feel free to reach out to me on my Facebook page. If you're from any other part of the world, still feel free to write to me, share your comment, maybe your personal experiences. And one thing I would like to leave with young people is, wherever you are, create a champion for youth, peace, and security. And that will make us, a group, a team, and you can imagine all these efforts together working towards sustainable peace and development. Let's work towards agenda, the SDG goal 16 of peace and security, peace, justice, and strong institutions. We have youth, peace, and security, 2250. We have women, peace, and security. So we have all the policies, all the amazing paperwork. It's time for action, and let's action. So feel free to ask questions. I have not received any so far. I am open to answer your questions or even your comments. I am also looking forward to learn from you. So please feel free to share an experience, and let's walk this journey together, because this is our role, this is our responsibility, and young people have been playing a great role in ensuring there's global peace and security everywhere, wherever you are. Let's support those people at the grassroots level who are making all efforts possible to ensure that they localize the SDGs and the youth, peace, and security agendas. So, wow, okay, I can see there are a number of comments, and I'm not so sure if there are questions. Youth is quite ambiguous, and different countries and contexts have different flexible age groups. Perfect. That's why I said sometimes we define according to our different nations, our different countries, our different setup. And as long as you are mature enough to play a role, let's also teach our children to promote peace, to love their neighbors. You can imagine if your children watch every time on the television that you're supposed to do ABCDs, some negative things that are not really nice, or maybe you freely speak next to them thinking they are too young to understand this about community A or community B, not necessarily about faith, about communities. You can imagine, you know, talking to them negatively. They will go to school and do the same. And what are we trying to do? Building up, you know, children who are viewing the world from a very, very, very narrow perspective, unfortunately, based on what you tell them at home. So let's also bring them on board. They are not too young to learn one and two things about youth, peace, and security. So they are upcoming, they're growing up, and I have said no to the phrase that said young people are leaders of tomorrow. No, 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 young people are leaders of today and tomorrow. So let's take up the responsibility and the role. I've also seen another interesting comment. Is interfaith dialogue applicable or rather convenient in countries where there are tension between communities of different faith? Or is it also advisable to have such a dialogue in areas or contexts where there are no tension? In other words, is dialogue necessary during times of tension and conflict only? Oh, interesting comment and question. Interfaith dialogue is necessary anytime and every time. And why am I saying that? Coming back to a personal challenge, I am Muslim. As you can see, I am dressed in my hijab, and sometimes I have found myself in a situation where I get in a train or a bus and people feel uncomfortable. I have been in a situation where a young child, a 3-year-old child, could not look at me in the face. And it's something that happened in Kenya. I was sitting in a matatu. People living in Kenya will understand what a matatu is, driving to, you know, another city. And the young, poor baby could not look at me because all he has seen is people dressed like me in television, especially at the peak of terrorism in Kenya, for example. And the young people just taps at his mom and he's like, Mama, Mama, see Al-Shabaab, you know? The young, innocent child thinks, you know, someone who is dressed like me is Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is a terror group. And, you know, anyone working in the peace circles will definitely understand. So everybody was shocked, disappointed, terrified, or even, you know, some felt like, oh my God, what is this? Kind of embarrassing situation. But of course, having worked in, I've been a peace ambassador for the past over 10 years. So having worked in this, I will easily understand. But it was a bit unfortunate. And I asked myself, were it not for the background that I had in, you know, peace building initiatives, were it not for the things that I learned about forgiving and, you know, this is just a child, how will this look like? Of course, it will just instigate, you know, conflict out of nowhere. I would, if it was an adult, maybe I would fight back and say, why are you calling me Al-Shabaab? And then he will easily say, because you're a Muslim. So having these kind of discussions openly from a very tender age, even in schools, is very, very important because it clears the whole issue of perception and misunderstanding. And it makes people understand that people easily can or belong to, you know, different faiths, culture, norms, religion. Anyone can subscribe to whatever value he or she wants. But then the underlying issue, the important issue here is you have to respect each other and you have to, you know, live as a community together and trust each other. Why? Because you are all human beings and humanity is what comes first. Thank you so much for asking that question and having that context. So dialogue is important anytime, every time. I will even encourage people to introduce it in high schools because that is the level where people are really in need of having these discussions. So lack of media representation of the massacre was one of the reasons. Perfect. Very interesting. Never shall we forget what happened in Garissa. Interesting. Thank you so much. So I'm trying to look for a question. If youth can be affected by an issue, then surely they are old enough to be engaged on the matter. More so, if 18-year-old can vote, of course, I love that. If 18-year-old can vote, then why not advocate for peace and security? Why not promote peace at a different level in your community? You know, if an 18-year-old is mature enough and given a driver's license, then why not drive the agenda of youth, peace and security? Amazing, thank you so much. If youth can be affected by an issue, then surely they are old enough to be engaged on matters. You know, this is so powerful. Perfect. So there's a powerful, powerful message. I am not so sure if I can recollect it well. Verily, the power of education cannot be silenced even by the deadliest gun. That is a powerful information that we have in Garissa. It's somewhere at the Memorial Park, and you know, that should tell you how amazing, resilient these young people were. And let's keep supporting each other. Let's because, you know, in my community, we say one finger cannot wash your face. So you need the entire hand, you need all your fingers and your palm to wash your face, meaning that I need you, you need me, and we need each other to drive this agenda forward. Thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you have learned, even if it's, you know, one thing or two things out of this. And perfect. So please, 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 I will also love to hear from you. You have my Facebook page, and thank you so much, Africa Matters, for hosting me today. And I am so honored to take part of this discussion. It has been an amazing time. And of course, I am quite passionate about this topic. And if you feel like this was a bit sensitive, or I touched on something that you felt is a bit negative, I am sorry, because I respect and trust and believe that every value, every faith, every religion, every community matters. And I will stand by that until the last day of my life, because I believe in humanity, and I know you all do believe in humanity. Let's take the driver's seat in, you know, driving this agenda of youth, peace and security. And let's please, please, please not leave women behind, because I am tired of people saying in Africa, women are left behind. No, no, no. Women are here. Women are taking the driver's seat. Women are on the menu. Sorry, on the table and not on the menu. So please let us work together, and let's ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you so much once again, everyone who tuned in. Thank you, Africa Matters, for your time, for the platform, and for the opportunity of letting me engage with young people across wherever they have tuned in. That's it from my end. Thank you so much, and have a lovely weekend. Bye.